Welcome to the England Rugby Pod. Thanks for downloading episode 47. In advance of Eddie's squad announcement on Thursday, we're taking a last-minute look at the goings-on in English rugby. You're listening to the England Rugby Pod, the rugby podcast that believes England will win the World Cup in 2019. Hey guys, welcome back to the England Rugby Pod. Thanks for listening. I'm joined, as always, by Dan. Hi, mate.
Hi, Andy. You okay?
Yeah, I'm good. Just before we get started, a couple of things that I wanted to bring up based on feedback that we've had. Some good, some not so good. I'll start with the bad. We had it was a shame, really. We had a poor bit of feedback, a poor review on iTunes from Deb666888000, who says that she got the idea. I'm saying she because I'm assuming from Deb. She got the idea behind it, but she says that we don't have a clue about English players and that we don't know who plays in what position, which is apparently a basic function of having a podcast, and therefore this is clueless broadcasting. And she's now unsubscribed. So we're really sorry that you've gone. Gutted that you're not around anymore.
Yeah, I think firstly, hey, look, fair enough. We want people to engage and get contact.
I'm not gutted, by the way. That was sarcasm's much harder. Sarcasm's much harder on a radio.
Yeah, mate, I did manage to crack that code.
That's good.
But when she says she gets the concept behind it, I think she 100% doesn't.
No, of course not.
I mean, as you sort of said to me from the start, the whole idea of this is it's meant to be mates down the pub having a chat, chatting about England rugby. And yes, it's for two of us sort of broadcasting as such. That sounds a bit fancy, but whatever. But we want, the listeners to get involved and we want to engage in conversation. Debs, if for whatever reason you are listening, we'd love to have a chat with you, but please do it in a way that enables us to actually have a chat rather than just look to sort of stick the knife in. In fairness to her, I was listening a few weeks back and one of our episodes, I can't remember, I was just really listening. And when we were talking, I can't remember what we said. It was actually me saying that. And I think I got Marlon Yard and Mike Brown mixed up. But in the context, I think it was a very understandable that we've been chatting about Quins and I said, and the fullback Marlon Yard. And then a few seconds later, I said Mike Brown. These things maybe happen. We're not professional broadcasters. We apologise if they do happen. But
no, do you know what? I don't apologise because this happens when you're down the pub. Look, guys, to put things in perspective, right? I'm sitting in I've got an office at home, but we just got a mic sitting on the desk and my laptop in front of me. Dan's sitting at his kitchen table right now. We're just having a chat about the stuff that we find interesting, that hopefully you find interesting too. That's why you're tuning in. That's why you're listening to what we have to say. But we want this to feel like we're all kind of sat around the table in the pub, having a beer, having a chat, about a game that we all love. There's absolutely nothing professional about this. We have always caveated that right from the start. We're not professional broadcasters. We're simply doing this. This is a hobby. We don't earn money from this. We're not doing this. We have no agenda. We simply enjoy doing it. We felt that we were having these conversations with ourselves every week whenever England were playing rugby anyway. And we thought, it'd be quite cool to record those conversations and share them and see if there's anyone else that wants to listen. Ideally, what we want is for people to get in touch with us. Feedback, tell us when we've got it wrong. Tell us hopefully when we got it right as well. And kind of get involved a little bit. Speaking of which, we've had a negative review from Deb and 1 star. It's a shame. We don't have a huge number of reviews. But, the other 15 that we've got or whatever it is now are all 5 stars, which is great. Thank you guys, who's given us those reviews. This is the one negative one. It's a 1 star and it's just a shame because it brings down, when you're talking small numbers, it brings down the average. And obviously this is the way that we get noticed. So, a little plea to those of you that listen that do like what we have to say. If you get an opportunity, please go and drop us a review that hopefully reflects the more positive aspects of what we're doing and can hopefully negate some of the damage that a 1 star review does for our podcast. But on a positive note, I got in. Someone got in touch with me on Twitter Harry Richardson, who very kindly says that he really enjoys the pod. Thanks for all the effort and enthusiasm you put in. And he wonders if we're going to plan to have a look at the effect the new rules are likely to have on England's chances.
Harry, we are on it, brother. Trust me.
I think the thing here is that predominantly the new rules focus in the scrum, but specifically on the front row. And as we continually point out, the front row is one area where we have real problems with our knowledge. And so we kind of wanted to make sure we were going to do this justice, and particularly now that Harry's got in touch with us and we keep pleading people to get in touch and tell us what they want to hear about. He has done so, and so we will, of course, honour that request. But we want to do it justice. So I believe, Dan, you've been trying to set up some interviews, haven't you? And actually, this is one of the reasons, guys, why we've been off the air for a couple of weeks, because we kept getting these interviews lined up and then they had to be postponed. So. What's going on with those?
So we've had two like I won't say who in case they never happen, but two certainly worthy and a lot more knowledgeable than you and I would ever be. People who have said they are happy to do it for us.
Brian Moore,
incredibly grateful.
Is it Brian Moore?
It's not Brian Moore. No.
Is it Victor Amugu?
Victor was very keen, but to be honest, he was friends with Deb, so I cut him out.
Oh, fair enough.
But obviously we need to work to their timetable. They're busy people, and we need to work to their timetable, which so far hasn't managed to match up. But they've been very good to us, and as soon as we do manage to match up, we will make sure we bring that to you as soon as possible. So
yeah, and Harry,
thank you very much.
Yeah, exactly. We will definitely get on that, and we will cover it. And thanks for getting in touch, and thanks for reminding us that this needs to be covered. And that's why we want people to contact us, guys, because we want to know what you want to hear about. We're kind of happy talking about anything to do with rugby. So if anyone has any specific requests for things they'd like us to cover, as long as they are within our wheelhouse, we'll certainly do our best to include whatever you want to listen to. That was my little rant about feedback and our lack of love for Deb 666888000.
Well, we say lack of love. Do you know what? I like a woman with strong conviction. So Debs, if you're single and you fancy a drink sometime, give me a shout. Unless you're front five, of course, in which case let's just ignore that completely. Sorry, mate, I need to use every avenue I can for the dating game at the moment.
Anyway, moving on. Okay, so guys, it sounds like a bit of a cop-out, but actually we're going to keep this episode fairly short and sweet, because Thursday, of course, is a big day. Eddie is announcing the squad for the Autumn Internationals. And obviously that's far more relevant to the England Rugby Pod to discuss that squad selection. And we don't want to bring you a ton of new episodes all at once. So we're going to keep this short and sweet, but there are a few things that we want to focus on. A couple of things that have happened in the last few weeks while we've been away. I think most recently, so this is not in chronological order, but most recently, Australia just beat New Zealand.
Hell of a result for them, isn't it?
I mean, I know that New Zealand were without Brad Barrett and Brodie Retallick, but
Brad Barrett.
They were out without Brad Barrett, but also without Beauden Barrett.
Without Beauden Barrett as well. Okay,
yeah,
wow.
Yeah, and Brodie Retallick.
This helps back up our argument from earlier.
It does, Deb. If you're listening, you see, we know what we're talking about. Anywho, no Barrett, no Retallick. Which I guess for a lot of international sides, players of their quality, would be a massive loss. But New Zealand, their thing is their ability to deal with situations like this, because they've got such strength in depth. So you would say that that isn't an excuse.
No, and I don't think they've tried to use it
as
an excuse. I think Australia.
I'm not suggesting that they have, but
yeah, I think Australia rugby has really struggled over the last however long, so probably since the end of the last World Cup. I mean, it gradually seems to be on the decline, but they do still have that ability. I mean, they can be shocking, quite frankly, but they do still have that ability to be a really, really world-class team and beat the All Blacks. So And the reason we mention this is obviously I don't know, whatever it is, 3-4 weeks time now, we'll be playing against them ourselves.
Yes.
So we need to, although I certainly as an England fan, and I think most of the England fans who I sort of speak to regularly, it almost seems a given. It almost seems a given that we think we're going to beat Australia. But we need to probably bear in mind that actually these performances are possible from Australia, and it probably won't be as straightforward as we've all, or certainly as I've had in my mind.
Yeah, I mean, it was a bit of a dead rubber the right phrase for this? New Zealand already had the win because it's obviously a 3-match series and they'd won the first 2. So to a degree, New Zealand are going into a game like that with slightly less on the line. Australia, pride says you can't win three on the bounce. Although, as we know from 2 years ago now, last year, I can't remember when it was. Last year, they can win 3 on the bounce. They can lose 3 on the bounce. They can lose 4 on the bounce. I think they did against us, didn't they?
It was absolutely, because there were the three internationals obviously in Australia from the tour, and then when they came to visit us at Twickenham.
Yeah, so this one in a few weeks' time is number 5 in a row. So they're either going to be 5 down or they're going to I guess provide a shock result, because actually I agree with what you're saying. They are a world-class rugby nation, but they have been poor for a while.
They have. Yeah,
the result at the weekend would suggest that things are starting to come good for them. But I guess the big question is, was that one of those games, that any top flight team can have, where it all just comes together because, everything was just pointing in the right direction, and actually as a side, they're still not there. Do you know what I mean? Like,
do know, yeah.
Are they a good side? Are they good enough? Or did they just have, a kind of one of those sort of freak great games?
I don't think it's that, because if you look at their players, they're potentially a brilliant side. They're one of the weird ones where you look at some other sides and everyone can have that great game and you're like, oh, that's brilliant. But if you look at the players, you're thinking that's a one-off game. Whereas Australia seems to be the other way around. The players they have, they should be having great games, but they seem to be just have crap games. I
guess Australian rugby in general is having a few issues at the moment, isn't it? I don't know a huge amount about it, but I know that they're getting rid of, or have just got rid of, one of their major franchises, and everything seems very up in the air over there. So that obviously can't help.
So sorry, the pod dog is going crazy. Apparently the postman's not allowed to deliver post anymore.
Quite right. You should just leave the door open and let him attack.
He literally won't attack anyone, but he will bark till it comes in. Apparently he's on the sofa and sitting on my lap now. So everything's back to normal in Wood World.
Excellent. Okay, well, where are we? Let's turn.
Well, we were saying about Australian rugby. So, and actually, what we were saying. So, what's interesting is obviously with the saying it's in a poor state of affair. Rugby union is, but obviously the Rugby League World Cup starts down under in Australia soon on Friday, and I think that's where probably the rugby element of Australia is a lot more focused, probably on the league side than the union side.
Definitely, and actually, guys, we are the England Rugby Union pod, but England are playing Australia in that opener. Australia are favourites for the World Cup, and hosts obviously, but England have their opener against them on Friday. So we will keep you. We're not going to follow it very closely because it's not a game that we're overly familiar with, but we will keep you appraised of the results, and who knows, maybe there will be another pleasant result. I think a lot of pundits have given England a pretty good chance of certainly making the final, but it will be an interesting game on Friday, because if there was to be an upset and England were to beat Australia, it would put them in a very, very strong position.
And that team will include a certain Samuel Burgess.
It will. The only one of the 16 Burgess brothers that plays professional rugby. I think there's actually about 6.
I think there's 4 of them.
Or 4, yeah. Or more than one. Anyway, so we'll keep you posted on results. We won't go into too much detail about them, but we will keep you up to date with how it's progressing. And I guess, depending on how exciting things get, we will perhaps do a little bit more on it. We'll play that one by ear. In rugby union news and a bit of a negative, but important to mention. There's been 3 sightings to England players at the weekend, which could be problematic for Eddie's squad announcement on Thursday. Obviously, England captain Dylan Hartley, he's won. He's always won. Nathan Hughes and Joe Marler, all 3 have been cited. They have their hearing, I think, on Wednesday. And I've read that the kind of the low entry ban for these offences, you're looking at 2 weeks. So that would be. Would they make it back for Australia? Possibly just.
Yeah, no, I mean, they wouldn't make it back for Australia, but that's assuming it would only be 2 weeks.
Well, yeah.
The interesting one there is, and we'll go into depth on this on Thursday because we'll know exactly what happened. So let's not go into too much depth. But what would be if Hartley and Marler are cited? I think okay, shame, but we've got that covered. If Nathan Hughes is cited, who would step in? And that's. When we know, that'll be a really interesting talking point, I think.
Yeah, definitely, because as we have said in past episodes, there injuries and now this are meaning that it's getting difficult to. This is always the problem when you have an outstanding player in a particular position. You kind of never look for their replacement because they're that much better than everyone else. So you just kind of figure, oh well, that's fine, we've got them. Whereas some of the other positions where it's much closer, we have amazing strength in depth, and we were aware of what's out there. So it may just be that we need to start looking, a little bit more outside the box and paying a bit more attention to some of the guys that are out there that quite possibly are good enough to do the job, but we just haven't really focused on them. But like you say, we're kind of we're speculating, and all will be revealed. Thursday, guys, that's one not to miss. Ending on a slightly more positive note, we've always said of George Ford that his weakness is his defence, and so it's quite nice to be able to say that this season, having moved to Leicester, he is the Premiership's. How would I put this? That he's made the most tackles of any back in the Premiership this season to date. So, go on.
Sorry, so I was interrupting you, and this may be a bit sort of premature because I don't know how you were going to finish it, but all the chat this season has been about sort of young Marcus Smith at Harlequins and how good he looks. I think in the meantime, George Ford's been left alone a bit, and he's actually playing really well.
Yeah.
And I think it's great. I think it's been really positive for him, and it seems to have gone under the radar a bit. And the fact that he's making these tackles and the highest tackle in the Premiership, that just makes me smile. That makes me happy.
And his boot seems to be firing reasonally well.
It really does.
We don't need it when Farrell's on the pitch, but it's good to have, particularly with Elliot Daly being sort of out of form. It's a good backup boot. I think in the past it's always been a bit of a sort of a groan if Owen Farrell has to go off, and you're thinking, oh no, George Ford's taking over the kicking duties. But for Leicester, he seems to be nailing his kicks. He's now nailing his tackles, and we've always been a fan of his attacking rugby. From the 10 in the 10 shirt. So if he can sort out his defence and he's always been pretty good with his kicking from hand as well. So this is just. It's exactly what we wanted to see. And I don't think Marcus Smith is a particular danger to him, at least not at the moment. So for all the talk about how good Marcus Smith might be, I don't think we're going to see him in an England shirt for some time.
I'd be surprised.
If at all, because of the Ford-Farrell link-up and how well it works. And you can't look past that because that's a key thing for England, is that these guys have been doing what they do together for a very long time. So it's good news for England. It's good news for George Ford, and it'll be interesting to see. It'll be interesting to see him back in an England shirt and alongside Owen if that's the way that Eddie goes. So looking forward to that. But we'll cover that on Thursday, guys. Tune in, find out what's going on, find out who has been selected, find out if there's been any upsets, and we will discuss all of that when you come back to us then.
That's excellent. And just a quick one, obviously, just to thank our sponsor, Doghouse Fitness in Balham. As always, thanks very much for your support.
Yep, cheers, guys. Quick reminder, like I said at the beginning, please get onto iTunes, rate us, review us, hopefully give us some more stars than Deb did. Try and get our average rating back up again. Let us know what you think, and you know, the lesson from this is if you think we're getting something wrong, or if there's something that you want us to talk about and we're not covering it, get in touch. Let us know what you want us to discuss. Let us know if you've got any questions. We'll do our best to answer them. It's at England Rugby Pod on Twitter. That's the best way to get in touch with us. We're on Facebook. The website's www.englandrugbypod.com. You can contact us through that, or you can email us, old school, englandrugbypod@gmail.com. Guys, get in touch. Keep listening, and thanks for listening today.
Cheers, guys.
Take care.